Hey guys, welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Cameron Selby, and we are going to be jumping through our power ranking updates for the 2025 season. Obviously, our last one was all the way back at the start of the season and right before week one, and a lot has gone on. And we waited a couple weeks because there's been a whole lot of up and down, good and bad for a lot of teams. So there is a lot of controversy going on in these rankings. It's a lot harder than you would think because it's not as simple as this team beat this team, so they'll go ahead because this team beat this team and this team beat this team. And it's a whole thing because everybody's had a bad week. A lot of people have had good weeks, some have had excellent weeks, and we have to dissect which ones matter, which ones are somewhat forgiven, or at the end of the day, we're going to cause some controversy. So I want y'all guys, if you don't agree at all, I want you guys, if you have any kind of disagreements or qualms and you want to add any input, please just go ahead and go in the comments. Let us know what you think. Who's too high? Who's too low? Who do you think has shocked you the most? There's been a ton of movement. Obviously, there's going to be plus and minuses from our week one rankings. We don't do we don't do weekly power rankings on this. We don't do weekly power rankings on this platform yet, but going forward, we're going to be doing it 1 month at a time. So every 4 weeks, going from here, first 6 weeks, we got a third of the season out of the way. We have a pretty good sample size now of how we view teams now compared to what we did at the beginning of the season. And then going forward, every month, we're going to be just trucking right along until we get into the postseason, and then we'll react to and predict how everything goes down. So leave a like. Please comment, subscribe, because there was a doubleheader last night. Had a really successful night in terms of lines that we made on showdowns on the 2 gamer. So if you do like fantasy content or you do want to follow us, please go in our Discord. We post our lines all the time, especially on special contests like showdowns, 2 gamers, prime time, all that fun stuff. That's what really carried the load this week, and we're hoping that we can continue that success going forward. But yeah, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Check out Dusty's college football content because he's doing a hell of a job breaking all that down. Emery will be back joining us pretty soon in the short term, but until then, we're going to keep on trucking right along. So I'd say let's jump in and rank all of these 32 NFL teams. So kicking it off, we're going to group these by 4, just to make it short and sweet, simple to the point. Tennessee. We started out thinking that they would be a little bit more optimistic. They would be kind of feisty because we liked a lot of their defense. We liked the moves that they've made. They've invested in the offensive line and drafts in multiple years recently. And obviously, the number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward, and they have been shockingly awful. All it took was a historically comical comeback effort against the Arizona Cardinals for them to get their 1 win of the season. But otherwise, they've been kind of dominated, handled throughout the entire season. Most recently, they are the first in-season head coach firing with Brian Callahan no longer there. The writing was on the wall without them. The writing was on the wall with that one, but at the end of the day, like, they just have not looked good at all. I've been shocked. Number 2 worst scoring margin, the other one being the Cincinnati Bengals, who we'll talk about shortly. But that one, a little bit forgiven when the best player and the most important position on your team is out for the foreseeable future. And a lot of those games, it was really bad quarterback play that really blew the door open for those games. Whereas Tennessee has just been bad for the most part, losing by an average of 13 points a game so far. And it's hard to see how it gets better going forward. I mean, even what you would consider somewhat easier stretch of these next 4, having a bye, getting New England, Indy. Apparently, they're really, really good, and they've made a leap this year. The Chargers have been pretty solid on top of that. The New England, you have the narrative of Mike Vrabel coming back to try to shit on his former team. So there's not a lot great. It will get better, but this was not going to be a team that was going to immediately contend for a playoff spot this year. I think we said that. I think they were last in my AFC South rankings because I didn't think that they would make that leap, but they would be feisty, formidable second half of the year. Usually, head coach firings midseason kind of spark the locker room a little bit, so maybe they'll get a couple wins and get some momentum going into next season. This season, for at least these 4 teams, are over from a playoff perspective, I would consider, unless something miraculous were to happen. But next up, the New York Jets. I mean, they 0-6. They only win this team so far. They are not 32 because of the way in which they lost. And like I said, if it weren't for Tennessee coming back from 15 down with a fluky dropping the ball at the goal line and an interception that rolled into the end zone, Tennessee would be 0-6 right there with them, and they've been the worst team. At least the Jets have, other than the Bills game, have come down to the wire for the most part. The Tampa Bay, or The Pittsburgh one, losing at the last second. Tampa Bay losing by a field goal at the last second. Miami, they were down 2 possessions to make it close. And then Dallas and Buffalo, both of them being very uncompetitive games. But then overseas on Sunday morning, almost stealing one against Denver. It's 0-6. You would have thought the discipline would be there. I think it just hasn't really been good. And Aaron Glenn, I don't know if he hasn't really sparked something. It's shocking how bad this defense has been since we thought, at least PFF did, going into last year thinking they were the number one defensive line / front seven and number one secondary in football, and they just can't stop anything right now. They're getting scored on left and right, but going forward, at least there's some winnable games. You have Carolina; they're actually favored going against the Panthers, who are 500 right now. You got Cleveland, you got a bye mixed in there, and then Cincinnati, who this is not Cincinnati we thought going into the year. So if they won all 3 of those games, that is not shocking whatsoever, but 2 of them is very realistic, I would say. And if they were, then that's kind of put right back where we thought they would be, which is on like a 5-6 win pace. So yeah, it's looked bad. Justin Fields, there's been a lot of lows, some highs. I mean, that's kind of the whole Justin Fields experience that we've kind of witnessed throughout his career so far, but he is probably under some of the most pressure in terms of if this does not work out and they go a different direction. Tyrod Taylor maybe comes in, gets starts, and they actually look better with him instead of Justin Fields, because they had to in a game sample they had to in week 3 when Justin Fields missed with a concussion. If they look better with Tyrod, this might be a situation where Justin Fields has to go and sit another year and hamper another season and hope that he has another Sam Darnold situation or Baker Mayfield situation where he's able to come in relief on a better team, on a better team, and hopefully revive his career, because this was his chance to come in. And this, once again, it's tough judging quarterbacks. It seems like if you go to Carolina, Cleveland, or New York Jets, like your career is doomed. That's what it's felt like the last 10 years. And right now, it doesn't look very good for them, or there's not a lot of long-term upside or excitement going forward. You don't necessarily know if the coach is the right fit or if it's really kind of resonating with the guys. So they've got some work to do, but there's certainly a path over the next 4 to where they can make some noise. And then we have Cleveland at number 30, jumping up 2 spots almost by default, but it's also because their defense has actually looked really good once again. Number 4 and number 3 in total defense right now, only allowing 262 yards a game, and yet you're 1-5. That just kind of shows how much of a growing season it was going to be. They basically, all the moves that they made were moves for their future, investing in multiple quarterbacks, investing multiple running backs. You had the trade back to get extra picks from Jacksonville, basically 2 first rounders, and you have all these moves that you're making to go in the long term. They started the season with Joe Flacco. They traded him in division. Very rare to have an in division trade, let alone for a starting quarterback or a quarterback at the time, because he was benched for Dylan Gabriel right before they went overseas. But I don't know. It's hard to justify the excitement of this team or the long term, but they have the pieces. But we've said that before. We've said they've had multiple first round picks before. We've said that they've had a really solid defense. They were the number 1 defense in 2023 when Joe Flacco led them to a playoff spot after a Deshaun season-ending injury. So it's all bad. Can't say it's all bad, but at least for this season, you don't really feel great about it. And the division is so wide open because of the fact that Baltimore, basically, they're all their Pro Bowlers are in shambles. Joe Burrow was lost for most, if not the entire season. And you have Pittsburgh, who is similar to Cleveland in the respective. They're going to be average to below average offense, but an awesome defense. But the difference is one has a playoff pedigree winning coach, and that's why they are the record that they are. In Cleveland, they're 1-5. I mean, something's got to change. Something's got to get better, because this is one of those opportunities where you would think something out of nowhere breakout could happen. We've seen recently with like Houston and Washington. having top 5 picks. No one's picking them to go anywhere. They win the division, win a playoff game, and it's exciting. Well, Cleveland, this is the makeup of that happening, and it just doesn't feel like they're even close to. It just feels like they'll still stay in fourth place in a good situation to where they could have taken advantage of it. Miles Garrett looks awesome as always, but we have less sympathy for your frustration of the offense not scoring when you had all the opportunity to stand your ground and hold out, and you decided to become, at the time, the highest paid defensive player in NFL history. We're an advocate of how good you are, but when you resign, you revoke your trade request and you go ahead and extend yourself, you're signing yourself up for this. And it's not like this wasn't going to be improved, at least this year. I do, again, they have the pieces to get better, improve going forward. They could be a sneaky, you know, watch out for them team next year. But right now, it just with Dylan Gabriel doesn't feel like there's much of an opportunity to improve. At least Miami is a toss up next week. But after that, you got a New England and what would probably be a more healthy and equipped Baltimore team the following week after their bye. So you're going to be flirting with the top 5 pick once again. But you got two of them, or two. But you got 2 first round picks. And I know we've said that story before, but is what it is. That's what you really got to look forward to as a Cleveland Brown fan. With the Saints, we started the year debating on between the Browns and the Saints who deserved to be worse, or the favorite to be the number 1 pick. They were both very similar, but New Orleans, there was a little bit of a scheduling easy schedule once again, so that will bump up and inflate their expectation a little bit. But also, we just knew that at some point the writing was on the wall that this team was just going to go into shambles because of the cap situation. They kept kicking the can down the road, probably too far. But at the same, and on top of that, they had a lot of bets on the defense not fitting the timeline of what this team was. And a lot of teams that can turn it around instantly are the ones that do just go completely young and then wait until the cap situation goes up. They balloon up. Think Denver, think Washington. In recent years where they had rough situations or unknowns or dysfunction and all of a sudden turn it around. New Orleans, they're 1-5. They're going to have a top 5 pick once again. But at least it's been impressive of the competitiveness. And I didn't expect that they would be a team that was in most of these games. I mean, outside of a bad first half against Seattle, where they were basically down 38-3 at halftime, they almost came back. They had a chance to tie it up against Arizona, losing close against the 49ers. You had the Buffalo game where they were a 17-point dog and they were in the game the entire time, only losing by 12. And then last week, home game against New England, once again, they stay in it throughout the game, and they just didn't go away. And we thought it would be Tyler Shuck leading the way, and he never even got the chance because Spencer Rattler won the job from the jump, and he's looked really good. I mean, right now, 16th in total QBR, and he's at least looked like what we thought a projected number 1 pick would be, because way back when he was the OU starter, Caleb was backing him up. That's what the thing was the preseason number 1 pick, and then he gets benched, has to go from South Carolina, middling results. Then he's a middle round pick. Last year, he's thrown to Mason Tipton. He's thrown to these guys that you just never heard of off the streets. And it's hard to judge a quarterback for that. But then they draft a second year in a class where there's not a ton of quarterback play. They draft a older second round quarterback and he beats him out. And he's kept the job and he's going to keep the job until further notice. But if they remain in the top 5, I would anticipate they could possibly be in the quarterback market. But he's played well enough to where he could have a chance, even if they do go 5-12, 4-13, that Kellen Moore says, "You're my guy." Unless they make some kind of splash, it's not like the quarterback class has gotten any better. We thought it would be a deep class, and all of a sudden it's been turned upside down because all the top picks have looked terrible, or a lot of them have not helped their stock. There's some rising, and you just don't know. It's a scrambled mess. And New Orleans, you just don't know what they're going to go. But I've enjoyed their competitiveness. They've looked impressive. Their schedule, it's not like it gets any worse. I know this next stretch, going to Chicago, Tampa Bay, at the Rams, and at the Panthers, is probably 3 to 4 losses. But after that, there's a lot of games on the back half of the schedule where you're playing, a bunch of teams in good environments. The only outdoor game you play the rest of the season is against the very Tennessee Titans way in late December. Way in late December, you play the Tennessee Titans. So this team can win 5-6 games. It's capable of doing so. Will they? Who knows? But this is why it's so hard to just pencil in, or I'm sorry, put pen to paper of this team is going to be the worst team in the NFL, and it's not close at the start of the season, because it is the NFL, and people will just kind of shock you out of nowhere sometimes. And the tanking for 2 seasons and all that stuff, everybody that we think is in the market for it ends up falling back or doing better than what we think and believe, and you just never know. It's a day by day business, and so that's what I would say about them going forward. Next up, Miami Dolphins. I thought Mike McDaniel was going to be a midseason firing. They're 1-5. Season's basically gone exactly how I thought it would, if indeed they lost to Indy and New England, because I thought that those were losable games, and getting 33 dropped on them by each team. And now they're 1-5. Tyreek Hill's out for the season after a gruesome injury on primetime. I think it was 2 weeks ago now. And there's just not a lot of excitement going forward. Their offensive line is banged up. Their secondary, just guys off the streets, just got to suit up for them, because they already came into the season losing multiple defensive backs to free agency, then multiple to injury, and then now there's even more injured. The run defense somehow is even worse than that secondary, and so right now they're 1-5. It doesn't look good. Tua is calling out leadership, but he's the leader himself. Mike McDaniel's doing weird stuff with his feet and his joggers at press conferences. I don't like anything at all what I'm seeing from Miami. It just feels like it's a complete blow up and mess, and it just feels like they're probably going to be graduating to the next slide and possibly stay there if things trend this way, because they are the only team on this list that is here because the fall off of the team. At least the Raiders, which we'll get to in a second, a lot of people thought that they could be a sneaky team. It has not looked good, but at the same time, they haven't looked as bad as Miami. And Miami had more expectations. Miami's had way more expectations in recent years, especially this year, where they had an open division in terms of who's going to grab that second spot in division. Basically, New England, the Jets, and the Dolphins were a pick 'em to finish second, and now it doesn't look even close. And I know the Jets are 0-6, but Miami, it just feels like they're trending even worse than what the Jets are. But it's not like that's a huge competition worth debating on who is worse between the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins right now. Baltimore, big drop. Obviously, they started out top 3 team, and they've just fallen apart. It has nothing to do with anything other than injuries. The Buffalo game, week 1, it's not like it's unforgivable, but they were dominating the game in all facets, and there was a historically great fourth quarter from Josh Allen. Buffalo comes back and wins the game, but then after that, blowing out Cleveland the way they did was cool, but Detroit came in and beat them down, and then after that, they just kind of fell apart injury-wise. 7 of their 11 Pro Bowlers are on IR, injured, missed multiple games so far, and that doesn't include other Pro Bowlers that could either just out of game script, bad situation. Secondary has not looked nearly as good as advertised as it was going into the season with the moves that they made, and like I said, there's just injuries left and right. Their best defensive players out for the season. Other guys are injured. Defensive backs are doing podcasts. Mars missing time, and he's a very valuable asset. Derrick Henry is a non-factor as a football player at this point in his career if they are trailing, and that's no disrespect to one of the all-time great running backs, but he's just a non-factor when they're getting blown out or playing from behind. That's just how it's been for the last couple of years, especially in Baltimore, but those times have come far and few in between. But now, after back-to-back home losses against Houston and the Rams, they're 1-5 going into their bye. Lamar should be back following the bye, and they have a stretch to where they could win, 3 of 4. I know going into the Rams game, after a 44-10 loss at home against the Texans, who were 1-3 at the time, they were still favored minus money, let alone to win the AFC North after that result. And so I haven't checked on what the update is after this loss to the Rams this week, which no harm, no foul. You lost to the Rams, a really, really good team. Your quarterback is also good. those losses, it doesn't matter about, it matters more about how it looked more so than if they lost those specific games to me. And the Houston one was really bad. The Rams at least was more competitive. They were stuffed on the goal line a couple times and ended up not scoring a touchdown, 17-3 loss. And so now they've got some work to do. 1-5. I don't expect them to be this low next time we do this. I expect them to win against Chicago, Miami, Minnesota. Probably will be favored, I would say. And if they're not, going 2-1 the stretch, I think will go a long way in turning the season around. But this doesn't feel like a three-team. This doesn't feel like a threat of a three teams from this division in the playoffs like we've seen so many years. And now it feels like you got to win the division to go forward. You've lost tiebreakers to Kansas City, Houston, Buffalo, and crucial losses. And so now the back half of their season, it's honestly kind of an equivalent to what we saw with Cincinnati last year, which I think they were also 1-5, and they had to run the table. And the final, after they were, I believe, 5-8, they had to win out. They won out, but they lost the tiebreaker, and that's why they didn't get into the playoffs. It feels like a very similar scenario to where they are going to be a dangerous team. They are going to be a team that nobody wants to face going into January. But can they get there? That is going to be the key question. So if they win all three of these next coming after their bye, if they win those next three games, they go to 4-5, and then following that they have a Jets team, home against Cincinnati on a short week, home against Pittsburgh, at Cincinnati again, which we'll see whether or not Joe Burrow is even going to be healthy enough to play. That the it's on the board that they just win all these games and all of a sudden are 8-5 after the next 7 weeks. That is very, plus money. Wouldn't make that bet, but it's on the board. And it all comes down to whether Lamar can stay healthy. If it's not, it's a complete wash season. Those things happen every now and again. There is a team that just falls apart. That was a contender, and it's just a lost season. And that's why Cincinnati is right next to them. They're slightly above them. I don't know if they deserve to be. I really don't know, because Cincinnati has the worst plus minus in football right now, losing 4 straight after losing Joe Burrow for at least most of the season to a turf toe. And at least they traded for Joe Flacco, and they look better against Green Bay. That's all I can really say right now. They're kind of in a similar boat to where they were last year. They're going to be on the outside looking in. But at least the next month, with Joe Flacco now as their quarterback, their vet quarterback, they don't have to go on the road for the next month. The next road game that they play is at Baltimore on Thursday Night Football, following the Week 10. So home game against Pittsburgh, they're not going to be favored. But are you shocked if they win a gross game against the offense that isn't really humming right now? The Jets, who are winless, home against Chicago. If they go 2-1, they're 4-5. I mean, it's on the board. And on top of that, the 3 of the 4 losses that they had are NFC teams. So that's not nearly as crucial as what Baltimore has, which they lost 3 games to AFC teams already. So the first tiebreaker for non-division opponents, first tiebreaker for non-division teams are conference record. And right now, if they only have 1 loss against AFC teams and they're 4-5 after these next couple of weeks, then it's on the board to get there. And it just depends on the severity of Joe Burrow's injury and if they can make this kind of comeback. Again, it's on the board. They could be better than before, but then again, this could just be a lost season. Once again, it's frustrating that it feels like every other year Joe Burrow is missing long term because of injury. I just want to see some longevity from him. They've tried to invest in the O-line. They've made horrible decisions, not great draft investments, and so they just need they have some work to do to make some salvaging of this season. Cincinnati and Baltimore together. We'll see what happens and see if either one of those can make some noise. The Raiders, it just comes down to they're not protecting the football. The Geno Smith swap or move of trading for him, letting Sam Darnold go to, and then Sam Darnold going to Seattle. The public perception was Raiders had an upgrade. And I've learned as a football fan is we can't just say it can't get worse, right, when you have X at quarterback. Because we've seen multiple situations in a row now where Aaron Rodgers, all you got to do is be better than Zach Wilson. And Aaron Rodgers wasn't. And now all of a sudden he's the quarterback for the first place team in the division with a handsome lead. With the Raiders, all you got to do is be better than Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. And you're not. You're leading the league in picks. You're not playing well at all. And not only did you invest draft capital by giving away a day 2 pick, you've also extended him. So this is at least a 2-year window before you can really truly move off the money. It can be done, but Raiders were a sneaky team where they could flirt with the wild card, but the thing was they're just in a tough division. I did call them in power rankings before the best 4th place team. And if they were in any other division, I might pick them to win the division. I don't know if I can necessarily believe that anymore, but it's not denying that they're still in the best division of football because all 3 of their contemporaries are going to be in the upper half of this ranking. And right now, we'll have to see how scrappy they can be because before we've seen Antonio Pierce, they kind of grinded out some upset wins and grinding out and surprising good teams. And now they're 2-4. They have a road game against Kansas City versus Jacksonville and at Denver in their next 4 games. I don't know if they're going to be favored in any of those games. And if they start 2-7, it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of optimism going forward. The one positive I could say is Max Crosby is absolutely him. And one of my favorite calls I've ever had, one of my favorite calls I've ever seen Emery, one of our GTD members, make. And this was before we started this podcast, but him shouting out and saying Max Crosby was his favorite pick as a Raider when he had 3 first-round picks back in 2020, 21, whenever it was, following the Khalil Mack moves and stuff like that. And he was like, this is the guy, and I like him a lot. And all of a sudden now he is arguably the most productive, impactful defensive player in football. And it's awesome to see that he's having success and that Emery on his own team called that shot. But other than that, there's not a whole lot else. I didn't expect this run blocking game to be as bad as it was because Genty has been pretty bottled up outside of one breakout game. And on top of that, Brock Bowers missing the last couple of games due to injury doesn't help things either. So they've got work to do. Doesn't feel like it'll get much better. They've got 3 key games, and if they can sneak away with 2, one of them being a road division game, they could still be in it. If they do lose all 3, you might have to consider this season done. The only 2 wins that they have are a ugly weather game against New England in the opener, which weird things happen in opening weeks of the season. And then most recently, they grinded out a gross win against Tennessee in a truly pukey sicko game, if I could steal the term from Dusty and Emery for this specific episode. Jumping over, pretty simple, self-explanatory for very different reasons. Dallas, they're right where we thought they were for it to start the season. We were probably lower than most on them. And the one thing I will say is I didn't expect the offense to look this good. If you would tell me that they would be one of the top scoring / producing offenses without CD in for half the season, I would have said that was a joke. But George Pickens has been awesome. The only thing is, because of trading for him, it's in a contract year, and him looking awesome the way he has, you're going to have to pay him. And it's so funny because of the fact that we just got away with this toxic, just agonizing talking about Micah Parsons in this contract before we've talked about the Zeke one, before we've talked twice about the Dak contract. And now we're going to go into this offseason, and George Pickens extension is going to be the talk of it. And it's just going to be infuriating to listen to have to discuss. But he's earned every penny so far. He's been awesome. But their defense, historically bad. They right now would be on pace for the worst total defense in franchise history, averaging 414 yards allowed per game, which is dead last in football. This run defense has gotten worse despite Micah leaving, and I thought that was the reason that you wanted to upgrade the run defense, and it has not gotten better. Rico Dowdle called his shot, said he was going to run all over you, and he did that and more. And right now they're a 2-3 team. I made the bold prediction to start the year that they were going to be a last place team, finished behind the New York Giants. They did beat the Giants in overtime, and that was a Russell Wilson-led Giants, and that was before they beat the undefeated at the time Chargers. They did drop to the Saints, but then they, on prime time as a touchdown dog against the Philadelphia Eagles, absolutely smacked them 34-17. So right now, Giants are trending in a better direction because Dallas coming off a loss to Carolina. They've gotten blown out against Chicago when they were winless. So they've got some bad losses, some sneaky fun results. But at the end of the day, big picture, I can't be excited about a tie against Green Bay. I can't be excited that opening week you kept it close against Philly. I talked about that they needed to start out hot like Pittsburgh did to have a chance at the playoffs. 2-3-1 is not a hot start. Now you have to play Washington, who just dropped the game on Monday Night Football. Then you go to Denver. Then you play Arizona. You're probably only favored against Arizona, if that. But at the same time, Kyler Murray never loses in Arlington. He never does. If you pay attention at all, he is regarded as the best high school quarterback of all time from Texas, and he just constantly wins games when he comes to play Dallas in their home stadium. So going into the bye, I would be shocked if they weren't 3-5-1. So yeah, it doesn't look great. And on top of that, after the bye, the best game that they have the rest of the season is a at Raiders game post bye, and it's not like that one's necessarily a gimme. So this to me is still a fourth place team. I still feel firm about that. But it'll be exciting. It'll be fun. We'll be playing a lot of them in fantasy if you follow that content. But in terms of win-loss record, I just don't have much expectation going forward for them to turn it around in any way. Arizona, they don't. It's not that they don't deserve to be on this slide, but it is annoying that they are on this slide. They are 2-4 and dropped 4 straight games by 1 point, by 3 points, by 1 point, and by 4 points. So they're all close. But the frustrating thing is that they keep letting games slip away at the end. Even the games that they won, the Saints and the Panthers, they were up by two scores in the fourth quarter. And Carolina is driving with a chance to win the game against them. The Saints were dead in the water and had a chance to tie it. The San Francisco 49ers, they pick off Brock Purdy, should have had a chance to win the game. They have to punt it away. Then they get a safety and the ball back, 15-13 on the road, and they lose the game. Tennessee, I mentioned earlier about the historical collapse they had in terms of just dropping the ball at the end zone, the fluky interception rolling to the touchdown. 9 times out of 10, they probably beat Tennessee. But you dropped a game that you had no business even letting be close. And then with Seattle, that was the one game that they were down the whole game, but they came back to tie it and then lost on a game-winning field goal. Indy, I mean, Jacoby Brissett, revenge game without Marvin Harrison after losing him to a concussion. Almost snuck away with one against a very hot team right now, but they ended up losing that. So now they have a home game against Green Bay before the bye. Oh, y'all had such an opportunity. And it's not like the defense and it's not like this division's any worse or any harder. It's not like this division is easy at all. Similar to the AFC North, to where I mentioned Cleveland having the opportunity to just jump ahead and run away with it, or at least shock the world. Like, there's a lot of 500 or better football going on right now. I think all 3 of their division opponents are 4-2. They should be 4-2, if not better, and they're not. They're 2-4. They're all the way back at 23 in this rankings. They've dropped games they shouldn't have lost, and usually they start out hot and then fade. So now they've started out slow, and outside of this Dallas game where it could be a true pick'em, they're not going to be favored against Green Bay. They're not going to be favored on the road against Seattle. So they need to sneak away with some wins that they're expected to lose because of the fact that they couldn't win games that they were supposed to win. So they shouldn't be here, but they are. Shout out to Will Johnson. He's been cornerback 1, and it's not been close. He was never cornerback 2 behind Travis Hunter. If you believe that, you just didn't watch Will Johnson play football. He was awesome. He was always cornerback 1 in this class, and he's been injured, but he's been lights out, one of the top graded corners in football right now. So I wanted to shout that out because I love Will Johnson, and me and Emery had no idea why all the NFL teams allowed him to fall in the second round to the Arizona Cardinals. Moving on, Carolina Panthers, pretty self-explanatory. They're a not so great team that has had some really sneaky results. But at the same time, they've been blown out by Jacksonville. They've been blown out by New England. Close game, but they were getting blown out by Arizona. But then they've snuck away with a win against Miami. They snuck away with a win against Dallas on the last couple weeks as home dogs. And then also probably one of the more shocking results, not necessarily big results, but 30-0 against Atlanta. Atlanta just beat Buffalo at home last night, and that's the same team that lost 30-0 to the Panthers. So I mean, they've won all their home games. They've lost all their road games. That's the making of a 500 team. Are they good enough to be 500? I don't know, but they're at least playing better. They won back-to-back games. They're playing in New York Jets, but it is telling, like I mentioned earlier, the Jets are favored. The winless Jets are favored against the Panthers right now. So they're going to be sneaky, formidable. I like that at least they're scrappy. But Bryce Young needs to put together a better stretch than just a couple game sample size. He needs to play better throughout the season. And they've got an up and down schedule. So this just feels like a 7-ish win team that is going to be in a lot of games, hopefully. And if not, then no one's really surprised. The Giants probably were going to be on the first slide if it weren't for Jackson Dart completely just having two of the most quality wins of the season, beating the Chargers the way he did in his debut. And then I know the Saints losing that game, very bad loss. But then the following week, you on a short week turn around and then the defending champions come into your house. You're a touchdown dog at home. Rarely happens, especially in division games, and you blow them out the way you did. He looked awesome, and this has been largely without Malik Neighbors, who is out for the year with the torn ACL. So he's been awesome. Schedule gets pretty tough. This is a tough stretch at Denver, at Philly, versus San Francisco, and at Chicago. So hopefully Purdy and Kittle and all these guys will be back by the time that they play that game. But if they're not, they're going to be dogs in all 4 games. And this is a team I thought would be scrappy enough to win 7 games and flirt with being the 3 in this division. And they're at least playing better enough to where, who knows, something can happen. But at the same time, it feels like this conference is going to have a bunch of 10-win teams make the playoffs and possibly one miss. If you remember our NFC predictions, Emory had, I think it was 3 10-win NFC teams miss the playoffs. So we've been lights out in that regard of just there's going to be a lot of really solid teams in the conference. So I don't know if they can sneak away with the playoff spot, but this is a very welcoming sight. And if there's going to be somebody that's losing, going 6 or 7 wins this season, this is kind of the way to do it, to show the optimism, show the defensive line play better the way they have recently. And Jackson Dart at least starting out pretty strong for his debut as the New York Giant. But yeah, let's keep on raffling through. Next up, we have Houston. Houston is my best bet that is going to be a riser in this ranking next time we do this in week 10 or after week 10. They started out 3 quality losses on the road against Jacksonville, last second loss against Tampa Bay, which we're going to be talking about way later because of how they've played. And then the Rams going on the road, losing a close 14-9 game to start the season. They just had a tough stretch to start the season, but then they blew out the Titans, shut them out 26-0. I know it's the Tennessee Titans, but shutting out any NFL team is impressive no matter who the opponent is. And then following that up with a shellacking of the Baltimore Ravens, beating Tennessee, beating Baltimore. That doesn't mean anything based on the versions of teams that they played. But it's a good sign that they did win AFC games. They blew them out the way they did. And then now go into the bye where it's just like, okay, now our season begins. We can get rocking and rolling. 2 of your 3 losses are against NFC teams. So it's not like you're behind the 8 ball in terms of being a possible wild card team. Still in the division race for sure. I mean, they have a shot at Jacksonville coming up in week 10. And this next stretch of games, I'm actually going to pick them outright against Seattle, even though Seattle's looked really good on Monday Night Football. Then they have a home game against San Fran, who's been absolutely banged up. They just lost Fred Warner, as well as losing Nick Bosa a couple weeks ago. And then home games against Denver and Jacksonville. So winning 3 of 4 is completely on the board with this team. And if they indeed do that and they go into week 10 or they go into week 11 into the middle of November at 5-4, they're going to be right back there as a 9-10 win team. And that could be enough to get, based on the fall off we've seen from a lot of teams, namely the Baltimore and Cincinnati, who are minus money to make the playoffs, looking like long shots to do so now. It feels like they're completely on the board to be them versus Indy to possibly get a wild card spot, or possibly all 3 of them, including Jacksonville getting in. Who knows? But they're definitely in the thick of things. I know 6 spots down doesn't feel great, but it was a slow start. All of them quality losses. None of them were blowouts. Offensive line still is bad, but they're good enough defensively to win games. And CJ Stroud has not made the playoffs since he's been a starter in the NFL. San Francisco, completely fallen apart. Didn't know where to put them. I remember to start the season, they were the most difficult team to place, but now it kind of feels more concrete. Shout out to Kyle Shanahan for allowing them to start out 4-2 with all the injuries they've had. But their wide receiver 1, 2, and 3 have been all hurt. Tight end 1 is hurt. Quarterback 1 is hurt. Their tackle's old. They've missed interior offensive lineman. Nate Bosa, I mentioned, out for the year. Fred Warner now out for the year. They've had a lot of turnover in the secondary, and they're somehow 4-2. And that is a big kudos to them. But it just feels like there is so much going on that it's just going to be too hard to overcome. It's not like their schedule is that difficult. We went into the season saying that they're not good enough to be a 10, 11 win team, but they very well could just fall into that. Well, it does look a little more difficult now because going into this part of the stretch, you thinking healthy, this was a 3 to 4 win stretch for this team. If you started the season, home game against Atlanta in prime time, then you got a Houston team, which is a toss up since it's on the road, but wouldn't be shocked if they won. A Giants should be a cakewalk even on the road at the time. And then the Rams being at home, knowing that you already beat them, you would think, oh, that's a 3-1, 4-0 stretch. And if you started out 4-2, you're basically 1 seed bound if you go that route. Now it's like Atlanta just coming off a win against Buffalo. Houston, I just mentioned, back-to-back blowout wins and off a bye. And if they beat Seattle, then that's 3 in a row. The Giants look great right now. The Rams basically dropped one that they shouldn't have, and so they should be more desperate to not be swept by this team who have the same record as them. This could be a pretty rough stretch, and they could be back to 500 ball. We'll just kind of see, because this is the CMC show until further notice. He's the first running back in NFL history to start all 6 games with at least 50 receiving yards. Has been not nearly as effective on the ground, but he has been as impactful as he could have been. They're going to basically ride him into the ground to salvage this season, and he's looked awesome. I don't know how sustainable it is because of all the impactful guys that have gone down for them. Minnesota, big drop based on preseason. I basically fought to keep them in the top 10 because it's hard to say after their results, losing Sam Darnold, and that's all they did. And you're replacing him with the former first-round pick, and you were a 14-win team last year. It's hard to just start them outside the top 10 this year. Well, they haven't looked as great. Obviously, J.J. McCarthy has had an up-and-down start. On top of that, has been dealing with some injuries. He's missed the most recent stretch where they went to London, or he missed the most recent 2 games where they were overseas. Just came off a bye. They kind of needed it at the right time. Offense kind of stagnant, but now Jordan Addison is back. T.J. Hawkinson's getting healthier. Justin Jefferson is just waiting for his breakout game. But JJ should be back, but they're playing Philly. Feels like they're catching them at the right time after a blowout loss to the Giants. So you got a stretch to where you could do some stuff, but this is Philly, Chargers, Lions, Ravens. Man, that's a difficult stretch, especially when Baltimore, even though they are 1-5, going forward 3 weeks from now, are probably going to be as full strength as they will be the remaining of the season. And on top of that, more desperate to win those games. So tough, brutal stretch. It's going to be hard to not envision at a best case scenario 2-2 coming out of this stretch, but we'll just kind of see what happens. This division looks as advertised once again. Everybody right now is above 500 again, and it's not shocking because this was a historically great division last year, setting the record for most cumulative wins. We just don't know who was going to fall into 4th place. Right now, it feels like the lean is Minnesota, and it's just because of the offense looking a little more stagnant as compared to their rivals. Jacksonville, 4-2 feels too low to go 17. On top of that, they've had some pretty quality wins, beating Houston the way they did on Monday Night Football. The get knocked down, you get up again, can't never keep them down. Trevor Lawrence touchdown run to beat the Chiefs. They're 4-2. There's an argument between 7 and 17 for every single team to be at the top of that mold. But at the same time, a lot of those teams have beaten up on one another. So I can't fault them at all. They've had 3 straight quality wins before a respectable loss to the Seahawks last week. They're facing the Rams this week before a bye, and then road games against the Raiders in Houston. This is a team that it's just, I think it's the biggest wait and see team out there, because I don't know if it's a hot start or if there's more to come, because all 4 wins have been excellent. The quality blowout win against Carolina, and then Houston, San Fran, Kansas City consecutively, a close loss to Cincinnati at, basically not getting the ball last, and then Seattle. I'm not mad at this team. They're probably too low, but they're really solid. They were our pick to win the division. Feel pretty solid about that, but at the same time, didn't expect Indy to look this good. Houston is still not out of it, even though they do have a leg up on them at the very moment. But I wouldn't be shocked at all for them to be higher. You can be mad in the comments if they're too low. I understand if you feel that way. Next up, Washington. Keep on rocking through Washington. They've been kind of up and down. Handily lost against the Green Bay Packers. Followed that up. Washington was one of those teams that came into the year. I didn't know how to treat them. I thought that this could be a up and down season for them, and it's basically kind of been just that. It's been win loss every single week. They did miss some time with Jaden Daniels, but they split those games. So I mean, you can't really be too upset. But they blew out the Giants before they got good. Raiders, Chargers, quality blowout wins against those 2 teams, but then lost to the Bears, the Packers, and the Falcons. And so 3 key losses, because all 3 of those teams are going to be in the playoff conversation, and you have head-to-head losses against Chicago, Atlanta, Green Bay now. So, I mean, it's going to be really easy to inherit being the number 2 overall team in the NFC East, but because of the way the NFC West looks, the NFC North looks, Atlanta having a big win last week against Buffalo, Tampa Bay looks great. I don't know if it's a guarantee that 2 teams from this division get into the postseason. And if it is just one, Philly versus Washington, you got to side with Philly because of the way that they just kind of took care of them most of the season last year. So, I don't know. I think that was a tough loss last night, losing as time expired on a game-winning kick, because of the fact that tiebreakers are going to be huge, imperative. Dallas, they should win that game despite it being on the road. But if they don't, they are in huge trouble. Dropping their first division game, their 4th NFC loss of the season already through 7 weeks. That just won't be a great look. Then they go on the road to Kansas City the following week. Then Seattle, Detroit. This is a crucial stretch that the Kansas City result doesn't matter to me as much as the other 3 do. I know that might be the funnest game on paper. Well, at the same time, Dallas and Detroit will be fun as well, and Seattle for that matter. But the crucial ones are going to be winning at least 2 of these NFC ones coming up, because if you drop a Dallas, a Seattle, or Detroit, if you drop 2 of those 3 games, you have 5 NFC losses. There's teams, once again, that will be 9-10 win teams that miss the postseason. And those are the kind of results that leave you on the outside looking in. So it's a dangerous stretch. I don't know how this result's going to go, but you would hope as a Commander fan that they're above 500 after this stretch. If they're not, they've got a lot of work to do, because it more than likely means that you lost multiple NFC games. Atlanta, like I said, very weird up and down stretch so far. Don't really know what to make with them. They're the epitome of a middle of the pack team. You've got bad loss against Carolina. That might be one of the most embarrassing losses of the season. But you followed that up with a win against Washington, then a bye, then a week against Buffalo. And now you have a not nearly at full strength San Francisco team, Miami at home, at Indy, at New England, flipping those 2 as a chronological order. But, winnable stretch. And the biggest thing it comes down to is, can they continue to win at a quality pace? I don't know if they can keep up with Tampa Bay based on the way Tampa Bay is playing, but at the same time, Tampa's dealing with a lot of injuries, so you just never know. There's a lot of ways this team can go, but they are completely the epitome of should be where they are right now, at least of this tier of guys, which are multiple sides. Pittsburgh didn't believe in their offense. I still don't. But they've defaulted essentially to a 4-1 start. They've beaten Justin Fields. Quality win against Drake May on the road. But then they beat Carson Wentz and Dylan Gabriel. This feels like Denver last year, where Denver was a shocking 10-win team. but they did not win against a playoff team last year. All 10 wins were against non-playoff teams. Right now, because Lamar is down and the entire Ravens are down essentially, Joe Burrow's down, Cleveland's bad. They are walking at a walking pace to win the division. Like I said earlier, I don't think that this is a multi-team playoff or multi-playoff team division. So they need to win the division. Can they keep pace? We'll see. This should be another win against Cincinnati, but you never know. Even on a short week on the road, we've seen weirder things happen. We saw Jackson Dart as a touchdown dog last week at home shock the Eagles. So if that can happen, Joe Flacco can certainly score 20 on Pittsburgh, and that's just enough. But you never know. Then you got Green Bay, Indy, at Chargers. It's a pretty solid stretch to where you can win 2 to 3 games. We'll just kind of see. It's one of those teams that's going to once again just fall into a above 500 season again. And do you really truly believe in them being a contender? Probably not. But you got to respect them as such because they're just continue to get there every single year. Chicago, very big win, 3 straight wins now. After an 0-2 start, they dropped a game that they should have won against Minnesota. I remember it is way back when, but I think they at one point in the game had a 97% chance to beat Minnesota, and then they did not. The revenge game against Detroit did not go as planned, but then basically blowing out Dallas the way they did was impressive. And then back-to-back wins, 25-24, back-to-back field goal wins. Last year, they were losing all of these last-second games, and now all of a sudden, they've won back-to-back wins on the road. So that's pretty impressive, I would say. And then on top of that, this was going to be a tough stretch following the New Orleans game because you were on paper at Baltimore, at Cincinnati. You're probably going to be a touchdown dog to both of those teams going into the season. And then the Giants. Well, now you're probably going to be favored in all 4 of those games. Maybe not Baltimore because Lamar should be back by then, but 3 out of 4, and then all of a sudden you're 6-4 with quality wins. Maybe we were a year early. Maybe we're still a year early. But at least Caleb's not turning the ball over. He looks a little more confident. And what can I say? They're probably the second or third best team in that division. But the division's good enough to where as long as they don't beat up on each other, 3 can get in. 3 did last year. And I would not be shocked if they were the third team to get in this year. But they're just kind of another wait and see team because we'll see what those results actually mean going forward. Next up, big drop from the defending champs. Back-to-back results. We're up 2 scores against the very team that they're directly behind the Denver Broncos at home. They lost. They followed that up on a short week against the Giants team where they were a touchdown favorite. Were absolutely blown out, and outside they did not score after that agonizingly awful to watch 4 straight tush pushes to score. And so now this team is too good to be bottom 5 offensively. This team is too good to not be able to stop anybody. And right now they're just not playing up to par. Going into the year, I did not believe in them having the success and being as large of a NFC favorite as they were. And I was just like, I will take the field over Philly, but I just don't know who. And right now, it feels like they're the main enemy, and the easiest way to bet against them is just betting against themselves. They just completely don't look gelled right now, and it feels like a hangover. It feels like a just weird vibes. And they did start out 4-0 against good teams. They won them, and you had to give them credit because last year Kansas City was 15-1. They didn't win the way you wanted to watch them win, but they were still 15-1. Philly started out the first month thinking that they would be similar to where they're going to go walk into 13, 14 wins. And it won't be as pretty as it was last year. It won't be as much of a blowout as it was last year, but they would get there now. Not necessarily the case. Because of the other successes of the NFC teams, I don't expect it to be a shoo-in that 2 of these teams get there. So it's basically them versus Washington for the division, and we'll just kind of see what happens. They play them both games, I believe, are late in the year. So this stretch coming up to where they play 3 straight NFC teams at Minnesota off of a bye, and then the Giants, they get to avenge that loss, but you never know. And then at Green Bay, we'll just kind of see what happens with them. They probably are too low, but at the same time, they had to be lower than Denver. But at the same time, they've beaten teams that are above them. This is where it gets weird and just how you dissect who beat who and what matters more than the other. But right now, the vibes are weird. And if everybody's 4-2, I feel like I believe in them less than other 4-2 teams going forward. It feels like the Chargers and Broncos are just going to be lumped together all season. I feel like they were to start this power rankings this season, and they stay that way. Their only matchup was a come down to the wire field goal. And at the end of the day, they're both 4-2, and they're going to stay that way. They're both in the wild card race. At the same time, they're both above Kansas City, technically based on the division right now, but it doesn't feel like they've done enough to show me, even though the Chargers did beat Kansas City week 1, that they're going to be usurping Kansas City as the division winner this year. The Chargers missing both tackles for multiple weeks. Rashawn Slater already out for the year, but Joe Alt getting hurt. That has completely changed this offense to where they are getting pressured left and right. Now you've got Quentin Johnston, who was the breakout, getting hurt. You got Omar Hampton, who was awesome for a couple weeks stretch, and Najee Harris now. Najee's out for the year. Omar is on IR, so you don't know what to make of them. Denver have some good wins, have some weird wins. They have weird losses. Basically, the biggest premise of them last year were they were a playoff team because they didn't play any playoff teams that kicked them out last year. And this year, they've started out pretty solid. Quality win, like we said, against Philly, but then losing close games to the Colts and the Chargers. Games that they should have won, so they could be much higher. But at the same time, they did beat a hapless Cincinnati team. They barely beat a winless Jets team. They beat Tennessee. So once again, outside of Philly, you're not beating anybody. That is notable right now. Then you follow up that with home games against the Giants and Cowboys, and you got the Raiders in there as well. You're going to be 7-3, 8-2 after this stretch. You just are. And do I feel better about you if you are? I don't know. They're probably going to rise a spot or two by default. But if, say, they beat the Giants, Cowboys, Raiders, they lose to the Texans, or even beat the Texans, does any of those results make you feel like they're contenders? I don't think so. But the Chargers, if you are able to knock down who are one of the hottest teams in football, the Colts this week, beating a Minnesota team that is a quality win, I don't know what to make of these teams. Seattle, though, has looked awesome. Shout out to Sam Darnold for proving everybody wrong and thinking that it was a one-year wonder, because he has not been that, at least thus far. He's not on pumpkin watch, and he's been awesome through 6 weeks. And so now you've got Houston at home versus before a bye, and then a road game, pretty key game against Washington, I would say, and then Arizona as well in division. You already beat them once, so we'll just kind of see what happens with them. They looked really good and are right in the thick of the wild card race. Their defense has been much better than advertised this year. Jumping into the top 8, kind of rifling through, you got New England, another team that looked really good. Probably the most impressive win of the season so far of any has been going on the road, Sunday Night Football, against the Buffalo Bills and taking them down the way they did. That was awesome to see. They started out 20, and we thought that they'd be a dark horse, but they were everybody's dark horse to be a playoff team. But it looks that way now, and now playing Tennessee, Cleveland, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, you're going to win at least 2, probably 3, and optimistically 4 of those games. So 6-4, 7-3 is probably your floor of where you're going to be going into the thick of November. And there's a lot to like about the team. It feels like there's good vibes, there's good chemistry. Stephon Diggs has looked good. And the biggest jump, obviously, on this slide is Indianapolis Colts to start the year. We didn't know what to make of Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones has been A++ based on his expectations going into the year. They're 5-1. Jonathan Taylor is back to his old form, once again being one of the best running backs in football, and they had the biggest point margin right now. They've been awesome. They've been blowing out teams. But at the same time, you play Miami, you come back against Denver, you play Tennessee, you play the Raiders, you play the Cardinals without Kyler Murray. You're not beating anybody. But it's worth noting the way you beat them. When you beat anybody 40-6, it's impressive. When you beat anyone 41-20, it's impressive. When you beat anybody 33-8, it's impressive. And then beating Denver, they were dogs in that game. Coming back to beat them. Arizona, it's one of those you just grinded out a win. And then the Rams, you had A.D. Mitchell dropping the ball at the goal line for a fumble out of bounds. And then you had a holding penalty by that very guy for a possible go-ahead touchdown by Jonathan Taylor. Otherwise, we're looking at the only undefeated team through 6 weeks. 7? I don't know if it's too low. Is it too high? I don't think you can really say that at this very moment, even though they haven't really truly beaten anybody outside of the Denver Broncos. So this next stretch where they kind of get into some opponents that are formidable or reasonable outside of, I guess, Tennessee, who now no coach, maybe they sneak away with one. Tennessee's upset them before on the road. So Chargers, Pittsburgh, Atlanta, I think this will start to be the test of how we truly view them going forward. But they have been, you cannot have asked for a better start from the Colts so far this season. Detroit, Kansas City, they just played each other this past week. They're good teams. It feels like both of them weathered the storm. Detroit started out with one of the most surprising losses of the year. The way they got blown out against Green Bay, and blowing out teams to get to 4-1, and then kind of getting, tossed around a little bit against Kansas City on the road, and in a game that Kansas City needed to win. They were a little bit more desperate because of losing to Jacksonville the week before. But they look really good. They're still going to be one of the co-favorites or favorites to come out of the NFC. That loss last week against Kansas City, I don't really think is much ado about nothing. The Green Bay one, it was a week 1 loss. A lot of times you can throw those out the window. And then Kansas City, they are 3-3. That's probably the highest you're ever going to see a 3-3 team in a power ranking. But they're a team nobody wants to face right now. They've weathered the storm. They've lost close games. But now Rashee Rice is back. Xavier Worthy's healthy again. And now the light show is back because Patrick Mahomes is playing his best season since he had Tyreek Hill. And it's not even close. So now all of a sudden you have MVP Mahomes back. I know you're 3-3, but nobody's 6-0. Nobody's 5-1. Your one team that you're playing in week 9 at Buffalo, they might be dogs in that game, but you win that and you are tied for the 1 seed or basically a huge favorite to come out and get that bye or get a lot of home playoff games. And that's exactly what I thought was going to be the detriment of Kansas City, is if they couldn't weather the storm, they either had to go on the road because they lost the division, or they had to go on the road to Baltimore or Buffalo. Well, now Baltimore is out of the picture from a 1 seed perspective / 2 seed perspective. So it's the AFC West likely and Buffalo. And right now that week 9 matchup is going to come down to a heavy advantage of getting that 1 seed. They're really good right now. Back-to-back quality wins, blowing out Baltimore the way they did in a game that they thought they would get. Baltimore was favored. People thought they would turn around after a loss to Detroit the previous week. And then the very team that beat Detroit, and then the very win that they did, 2-possession game against Detroit, I thought was very impressive. So top 5 probably don't deserve to be more if you're 3-3, but they're going to be big contenders going forward. And it's not shocking to say that. Top 4, pretty shocking results. But Buffalo probably would have been number 1 or number 2, but they dropped the game against Atlanta. It's not a huge loss, non-conference opponent, but you'd like to see a little better. It feels like they're just kind of going through the motions and getting through the season, not necessarily trying to make statements, because they've done that before where they're the team that blows out everybody. It hasn't worked. They've been the team to grind it out. It hasn't worked. So at some point they have to do something to break the tie. They're one of the biggest contenders. They're probably the best team to knock off Kansas City of any AFC team, I would say, in the postseason. But at the same time, they've lost to them 4 times in the postseason. So you just don't know. But they're really good. Green Bay, I mean, you started out strong. They were probably power ranking number 1 through 2 weeks after their impressive results. But then you lose to Cleveland in a game you shouldn't have lost. You tied to Dallas. And then this past week, I mean, you beat Joe Flacco in his short week debut against the Bengals. Like that, it hasn't been impressive since it started out, but you're 3-1. It's impressive. That 9 spot we were to start the year, that was before the Micah trade, so they probably would have been 6 or 7 had we known that information. Right now they're 3-1. They're going to go into this stretch. They're probably going to win 3 of these next 4 games and going to be right there in the thick of things. And if they don't, then they might be in trouble to be one of the bigger disappointments following their solid start. Rams, they're usually the team that starts slow. Last year, they started out 1-4, had all the injuries, came back. Basically, were the only team that contended with Philly in the entire postseason. And so far this year, they've been pretty solid. And that was with back injury concern, Matthew Stafford being aging. He's been lights out and awesome. Devontae Adams has been really solid as a Ram. And Puka Nacua has been historically great once again. And Matthew Stafford just keeps on putting out historical seasons to wide receivers. So they're 4-2. One of the biggest contenders in the NFC. They probably would be my favorite right now. I think I did pick them to come out of the NFC. And I have no complaints about them so far this season. They did drop a game they shouldn't have lost against San Francisco, but they have, like I said in week 10, a way to avenge that against a more depleted version, or possibly against the very San Francisco 49ers. And then number one, the Bake Show, the MVP favorite. It's been awesome. It's so fun to watch Baker play. Tampa Bay, with the injuries they've had, he could be missing his wide receiver 1, 2, 3, 4, and RB1 on the road against Detroit. And I'm not right now shocked if he pulls that out. And that is the most forgivable loss if they indeed do drop that game. But you can't really ask for much more. He's put together MVP moments basically every game that he's played this season. The one loss was a game that they were down 3 possessions, came back, had the chance to take the lead, and his only interception of the season took place right in the red zone. So very forgivable. 12 touchdowns, 1 pick. Baker's been awesome. Can't really complain about him at all. Can't complain about this team at all. They've been lights out. It's been exciting to watch them play. And they are the number 1 seed until further notice. And again, it's very controversial. It could be. Last year, Minnesota at this point was the number 1 seed, and it was just because they were playing the best. Tampa Bay, they just find ways to win right now. And so this is a weird one where nobody is really taking advantage. Everybody has a bad blemish on their resume. So Tampa Bay right now, I think, is the most unblemished. And for that reason, I'm going to put them at number 1. We're going to put them at number 1. And we will see following this if they get knocked off. But their schedule does not get much more difficult following this Detroit game. I will tell you that. Obviously, you see the New Orleans and then the home game against New England, but it gets way easier after that. There's a legit path they could be a 14-win team. And they don't feel like they should be based on a talent perspective. It feels like they're a very strong team, but not elite team. But at the same time, there's certain lighting in the bottle type of seasons. I think of Atlanta in 2017 where they had their Super Bowl infamous loss. Like certain teams just catch lightning at the bottle, and it just feels the vibes of the Bake Show have been so immaculate that you just kind of got to ride the wave while it is still there.